for it.
Righto, well, welcome. We're straight into it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for continuing to show up. We appreciate it.
Commitment
Commitment is important.
has to be there.
How are we going? Scotty, how are you going? How's your week going? I love that you're in a hat today.
Yeah, thought I'd rock a hat. Bad hair, so just hide it.
Where's your hat? You got a haircut? No hat?
I did my hair. I actually worked on it for once.
Makeup.
I put some product in.
Ooh.
How's things? How are we going? What have you been doing? Obviously, you've been... You don't want to say.
I've been serving the Lord.
You serve the Lord?
Serving Jesus. No, I had a lot of meetings.
Yep.
A couple of Zoom meetings. Doing leadership things to churches overseas.
We had a great wedding last week.
Oh, we had a wedding. Yeah, married
was
somebody.
amazing.
It was,
Yeah, how'd that go?
He cried a lot.
Yep. So did
you?
everyone else.
Did you?
Let's be honest, 99% of people cried.
Yep.
Because
But
of
it
what
was
you said?
No, probably actually. I was a bit slow on that. Yeah, that's probably true. No, it was a beautiful day.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was a good
Nice.
wedding. Good to.
You did a good job.
That's a
Yeah,
privilege,
thanks,
isn't it?
mate. I'm a trier.
You did a good job.
And
That
it
was
is a
awesome.
privilege.
Not that I know how to weigh it up what a bad job is. I've never done it, but it was amazing. It was a really good day.
Do you know what, though? I've been to a few weddings where it's a celebrant or there's just no...
Connection.
Well, there's just no... Like, God's been totally removed from it, and it just feels like there's something missing. Yeah, that's what I felt. I've been to a few where it's like, it's just... Yeah, I don't know. Something's been squeezed out of the day.
I emceed at a wedding like that once.
What's that? UMC?
Oh,
yeah.
mate, it was. I'm not a natural MC.
Tough gig.
So I emceed this wedding, and I got to tell you, nothing landed.
Wasn't good?
Nothing landed. I had a mate who laughed just on cue. The only person, Stevie would laugh for me. That was it. Nothing. It was a hard gig. I felt like my material was solid, but it just wasn't. There was no connection.
I married someone once that, well, I think I told you, the bride walked down to that song from the 80s.
What was the song again?
I don't know if it's, who cares?
Everybody's
It was-
free.
No, it was it was a song they put out on the radio back in the 80s. It was a hip-hop song. And the line was, I want to sex you up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so that's what she walked down the aisle to.
That's Colour Me Bad.
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Keep going. Keep going.
We know where these guys are at.
Jeez, mate.
Oh, is that Hillsong? I don't know it.
Oh, Scotty's come out with it, mate.
Colour Me Bad.
Colour Me Bad. You nailed that.
Bad.
Yeah,
bad song.
that was a tough wedding. I was trying to keep my the old. I'm just was shocked, shell shocked actually. But
How did you find yourself doing that wedding? Was the
to be honest, I can't remember. It was so long ago.
paid gig?
No.
Wow.
Wow.
Gumtree.
Gumtree wasn't around then.
Yeah. Well, we've got an interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about consumer Christianity and maybe kick us off to give a really good explanation of what that is exactly. Let's go to Dan.
It's like when everyone puts their head down.
Here we go.
Not me. Anyone?
What would we like to get up to pray? Everyone's like,
Oh, jeez.
consumer Christianity. At the table, I think you've been doing it the longest in a few different ways. But just in layman's terms, consumer Christianity.
Consumer Christianity would put me, myself, and I at the center of the gospel, I suppose.
Okay.
So it's quite the end. Oh, geez, I'm already cracking out the words, boys.
Let me hear it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if I've got this word right to fit in the sentence.
Diametrically.
It's the consumer Christianity is the antithesis.
Ooh.
Would that be the opposite? Have I got that right?
I don't know, but
correct.
You know, yes,
Just
that is
pretend like
correct.
it's
Thank you.
I'm not the guy
Lord.
to ask.
Let's just say that word slower. Antithesis. No, it is the antithesis of the gospel. Like Jesus, I think at a basic fundamental level, he teaches, one of the core teachings that he has is die to yourself and live for others. Consumer Christianity is really about what I like. Does it make me feel better? Is it convenient? And so I think it's largely been come out of Western world. I'd hate to say it. I have a lot of friends in America, but I'm sure they know this is true. Maybe propagated largely from the US.
Yep.
Is the music right, the chairs right, the air conditioning's right, the kids ministry, the youth ministry, everything. You just go through everything. Consumer Christianity is like, does this fit me well?
Right.
And if it doesn't, they shop.
Okay.
So they'll go leave that, they go to the next place, walk into that church, and they like X, Y, Z, but they don't like some other things. They leave that church, go to another church, and they shop around. So that's why I say it is, I think the antithesis is the opposite of the gospel.
Right.
Especially, I think, the life of Christ. So, yeah, I think it's a big deal in the church today. This consumer mentality, like I'm going to consume and just, feed me, make me happy, don't upset me. And it's a Kool-Aid in some ways that people think, I don't know, people, you hold me to this, but I don't know if it's been the last century, 80 years, 100 years, it's just been on a progressive bent towards this type of gospel.
Right.
Because it does feed into our generations, me, more me. And so that's where I think the consumer mentality comes from.
Scott, your breakdown of why do you think we've gone down that road?
Yeah, good question. I think it's been due to the fact that we've lost. So the worry around as the secular, let's face it, the Western world, where in many ways Christianity in the public sphere is losing ground.
Right, in the public sphere, yeah.
In the public sphere, it's losing ground. In the culture, it's losing ground. So the worry around that is, how do we keep people connected to the church?
Yeah,
and it's built on a false premise that essentially leads into religion, and if we have the analogy of like just a big shopping mall, it's exactly what you said, Dan. I can walk in here. This church has got amazing worship. That's what I like, so I'll go there.
right.
This church has got a great kids program, and these things aren't inherently bad, but if they're the main purpose, the main reason why you're going somewhere, it's all about you. It's individual, and I think it's built on a premise that the secular world's encroaching on our faith. So how do we form people in their faith? Let's serve all their needs. Let's make sure that they're committed to this religious institution, and to do that, we've got to have lots of programs. We've got to meet all their needs.
Something for everybody.
Gotcha. And it again, it's on that material plane. It kind of really flattens out our faith, where it's all about, well, what makes me happy.
Yep.
And we're both to blame. As Christians, we're to blame because we've bought into it, and then leadership is to blame because they've built it. That's what they're selling. Yeah,
it's true, because I think churches work really hard. Having the best music, the most dynamic preachers, coolest youth ministry, kids ministry, the most comfortable facility, whatever you want to put in there. I feel like churches, we can work hard for that stuff because we are wanting to get the people and keep the people. But there is a flaw in that. There is it's erroneous kind of foundation. Because I've said this before, the way you get people in is the way you have to keep them.
Yeah.
And so that's a never-ending mouse wheel, if you like. I've got to come up with a more dynamic preacher. I've got to come up with a better lighting and with better that, bigger this, bigger that, because people are consuming. It's like, man, I want what's on next week. Oh man, we're doing this, and everyone's like, oh wow, let's go. So there is a trap in it that I think we got to be careful. In our generation, especially with all the tech we have,
it's really tied to a religious space. It's we've got to get you in here, and this is going to provide all your needs. And I think of, as an example, now these are two extremes. I'm looking for a place that's going to have a great kids ministry on Sunday. It's going to have all the bells and whistles, blah blah. Just as an example. Whereas I may go somewhere that doesn't have the best kids ministry, but the other 6 days of the week, I've actually got people that are being the church and are supporting me and are there to come and pick up my kids when I need them after school because I got caught at work. That I feel like those are the different things that we actually need to weigh up, and then I'm sure we'll go into it later about the church being, all of us being the body and helping each other and coming together to be the church for each other.
Good point.
And for others. And that example there is the difference between I'm coming here to get my needs met on a Sunday versus, wow, I can actually be part of a really vibrant community that is actually in my life 6 of the other days of the week.
Nice.
That still comes back to, it's probably a fine line between what do I, besides people saying what do I get out of it. So it's not like you're saying, well, what do I get on a Sunday versus what do I get the other 6 days.
Yeah.
But it's about plugging into, what's the point of having everything that's happening from Monday to Sunday, as opposed to what do they just offer in a service?
Yep.
But we're not really, are we crossing wires here with, say, the seeker-sensitive approach as well around offering everything, or is this a totally separate?
Well, I think that's part of it. That's what's built. That's what's created the really, for want of a better word, like shallow spirituality. Is that?
Yeah, it blends. They definitely cross over, 100%.
Because I think like the seeker-sensitive thing comes back to what I was talking about, where it's there's this we're so afraid of the secular world coming in and you're seeing it in the West. We're losing ground in the public sphere, and you see people walking away from religion and they're finding some other spirituality that can be a part of. So if we provide these things which are material and temporal, we've got them. We've kept them here, but it's a religious response to that, to the loss of faith, or to people walking away from the church.
So counter to that, Dan, what's a good position to take that's opposite to consumer Christianity? Because I know a lot of people who do watch this might not understand how to not be like that, because it's kind of what we're growing up in. Is like if the worship's good, the sound system's good, if the welcome team's good, if I'm loving the vibes on a Sunday, there's nothing wrong with all those things being good. Just to clarify, it's amazing that those things are good. You want them all to be good, but it shouldn't be the core purpose of why you pick somewhere, right?
No. I agree.
So how do you pick somewhere?
Yeah, I do agree, though, what you just said. There's nothing inherently bad. I think the idea to not go down that road, or how do you put it, to keep away from that, I think we've got to stay true to the canon of Scripture, and that is the fundamentals which I had mentioned when we first started, because when you think about what we deliver as a message, it does feed into the consumeristic mentality of a shallow Christianity, because if all I'm talking about is the blessing, the prosperity, the grace, the goodness, the favor, the love, which is all true.
Yeah.
I do believe God is very gracious. I believe He's loving. I believe He's 100% good. He blesses us. It's true. But if we stay too heavily in that lane, this produces a consumeristic mentality in Christians, and it's a very shallow thing, because when things don't go well, I think there's a weakness in Christians. So the way to keep away from that, I think, is, and I am talking right now about Sundays, but
yeah, you're also going to talk as the person going to church, or the people putting the church together?
Both.
Okay.
So I think if you're putting the church together, like you've got to think about the whole canon of Scripture and what are we actually teaching, both on the Sunday and then say Monday to Saturday. What are we feeding the people?
Yeah.
What are we feeding them? Are we just feeding them is it an unhealthy diet, spiritually speaking? So I think we've got to make sure we stay true to the whole gospel, and that requires the parts where Jesus, as I said in the start, like his teaching was one of die to yourself.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't hear messages like that a lot these days because it's just too harsh. It sounds so harsh. Man, don't tell me I've got to die to myself. That's not a easy thing to deliver.
Yeah.
So I think as putting it together, we've got to be conscious to keep away from it. As Christians, you know, if I'm just a parishioner in a chair, man, I've got to read the Bible.
Yeah.
I've got to keep my diet healthy, and it's not just reliant on some
100%.
guy at the front. What am I doing Monday to Saturday? Am I searching out the Word of God? Because I actually really believe in our generation, people are weak on the Word.
Yeah.
They're very shallow in the Word because, you know, you can just tell by how they react to situations, and there's a lack of maturity, and they're just been feeding on the good things, the sugar, if you like.
Yeah.
And we all know you have too much sugar, it's going to rot your teeth. That's what I was told anyway.
Yeah.
And because I don't really eat sugar, so not true. Love it. But yeah, if you just feed on that, man, it's unhealthy. You're going to get an unhealthy internal system. So I think we've got to be aware of that.
Do you think, Scotty, do you think fundamentally there's such a divide because maybe how not every church, but to a degree, every church kind of starts for a different reason? So if you start to be, and just to clarify, for argument's sake, no right or wrong answer, but if you start to be a discipleship, or you start to be, all we're going to do is teach people the Word, and then they'll go out and they'll teach the Word. We just Acts 2, that's it. Not worried about community to a degree, because Acts 2 still is. It's about that community coming together. And then on the other side, you've got, we are going to grow, and we're going to offer a safe place for the single mum to bring her kids. Our kids ministry is going to be amazing. No one's going to be offended. It's a safe place. So they're very different starting points, which means the consumer is, well, you're on one of them you become a consumer, on the other one you become a disciple.
Yeah.
And so the disciple, most of the time, they would only leave that church if they disagreed with the teaching or the vision. Whereas the consumer, you could disagree, you could not like a numerous of things that aren't important, and it sends you down the road.
Yeah, I think it's a fair statement to say every church is going to have its own kind of distinctive expression of what the church should be.
Which is a good thing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing is, as a believer, I think the question needs to be flipped around. It's not what can I get out of this on a Sunday. I think it's got to be, who am I called to? And you really got to ask Christ that question, who am I called to? So I may be in an environment that doesn't meet all my needs, but I feel like God's called me to that particular community.
That's very good.
I think as a believer, you're going to really start to step into some spiritual maturity there, because you're where God wants you. Whereas I'm here because something's, you know, I've got a particular bent in teaching, so I really love the teaching. Again, we're not saying that's all bad, but flipping the question around, because I think as believers, you really are missing something if your mentality is, what can I get out of this? Because the church can be so much more.
Yep. Yeah, I think Christianity is not selling a product, it's embodying a mission. Not my mission.
Yeah.
Christ's mission. And I think what we tend to do is, we wrap it around my thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where
we're distinctive here.
Yeah.
And this is.
But when I wrap it around the mission of God, like the mission of God is the redemption of souls. The mission of God is the equipping of saints to, take the gospel out into the world. And so that's, if I embody that, it takes it away from my own consumeristic mentality that I can have, and say, wow, no, it's not. It's actually not about these peripheral things which somehow become central.
The thing, yeah.
If that makes sense. And the peripheral is, a lot of this stuff with consumeristic mentality it actually is peripheral, but we make it central.
Yep.
And because it does feed into my own selfish desire. But if I wrap it around the mission of God and the mission of Christ, then I think it changes something on the inside, where I realised this is not about me. So it's not, what is it? It's go and tell, not, come here and see what we're doing. The Sunday experience, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
I think it's about, go. Like you gather Sundays to scatter Monday sort of thing.
Yeah.
And get out there and do the mission. And I think it's a real, it's powerful, I think, if we can get that and internally and get a revelation and we live from that premise. I think it's a beautiful thing when that's working well in the church.
All right, just to cut through the let's just cut through the tiptoeing. All right, here we go. So, actually, not that bad a question, but a direct question. Do you think there's a pressure on, say, senior pastors in the Western world to wrap up this consumer stuff? Because to a point, they are responsible, right? We play our part as the people going in, saying, I want this, I want that. Man, we need a bigger building. The sound system could be better. So we play our part in that, obviously. But at some
Sound system
point,
could always be bigger.
Oh, at some point.
Oh, I'm always about that. I love a good sound system.
But at some point, if every senior pastor around the place or the person, whoever's leading that environment, if do you think they subconsciously worry that if they're not doing it, I'm not just talking about them saying we're going to lose numbers. Do you feel like they might think they actually can't reach souls without this stuff? It's gone so one way that they feel like they can't reach souls without it.
Oh, I don't know if it goes that far. I would say there can be a lack of trust in us as pastors and leaders, that we don't trust. We don't trust the gospel in and of itself is powerful enough to change. Now, I think we do use the methods, and the methods have to change. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
The methods need to change. Message is timeless, but I feel like the consumeristic mentality that can be fed to the people comes from a lack of trust and faith in the inherent power that is found in the gospel. So we add all this stuff to it to get the result that we're after. And I think it's hard to judge because it's actually a motive of the heart. It's an agenda and a motive of the heart. And only God knows the heart.
Yeah.
So I can't walk into a church and go, man, that guy's sketchy as with what he's doing, because it could be a genuine motive that we're using all the things we have at our fingertips, technology I'm talking about, to get a result, but there could be a genuine, authentic God motive to say, man, I just want to reach people for the cause of Christ. But I feel like that's probably not the case a lot of times, but it's hard that I can't just go, that's what it is.
Of course.
Because it is a deep heart motive. And I have, in my own little world, have definitely been in that zone of like, I'll do whatever it takes, if that makes sense, to get a result, which is unhealthy. I know that in my own life, in my own heart, it's because, man, I want to advance, my little kingdom. And it's pretty messy, actually. It's ugly.
What do you think, Scotty, around that idea?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You talk about the lack of trust, because Jesus said that the Holy Spirit would come and teach us, walk us into the things. So do we not trust that? So, okay, the methods. I think the issue is when the methods become the. It's like worship is there, but worship's not happening. It's like the method's greater than the actual worship itself, or the kids ministry is there because, well, we're going to get more people into our church because we're serving the kids. Sorry, we're going to get more people. We're going to get more people into church because
we're offering a service.
We're offering a service, so they'll stick around. I think that's flawed.
Which is true. Like with kids, man, I've said that a million times.
Yeah,
you have good kids ministry, you'll get the family. Because if the mum and dad, if the kids
had
go,
enough.
It's true. If the kids go, I love the church because the kids, mate, the parents are there. Come hell or high water. They may hate it, but if their kids love it, they're there.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a mentality you can have. So, okay, we better make sure that's good.
You know what? From what I've seen in my short little, very short span looking at this stuff, I actually think that really good people get pulled into it as they climb the spiritual ladder within the church. They get pulled into the rat race of the consumer church, and then when they reach Dan's age, they have this aha moment.
Young age, yep.
Yeah. 32, 33, right? But so I see quite often, and this is just grace to these sort of people that we see around. They don't start off 99.9% of the time ever going, I just want to have a massive thing happening. They always want to change the world one soul at a time, right? But then they kind of, I'm going to do it this way. But they have all these ways, but they generally just gets knocked into this little bottleneck and it goes, no, this is how you do it. This is the model. And I reckon we see that heaps. So it just kind of takes people every now and then to step out and go, I'm not doing it that way. I'm going to trust that God's actually hasn't called me to a church in the OC. He's called me to Africa where there's no money.
Ouch.
Oh, you want to go to the OC? Oh. Sorry.
Glamour.
You don't want to go there now.
You did say Africa.
I did say Africa.
We had a guy write to us. I know him.
Oh, you've been talking to him?
I know him.
Yeah, I saw that.
I did a crusade for him.
Say hello to him.
He's from Rwanda. He wrote to us on a message thing.
To this?
Yeah.
On the thread. Oh, what, you don't... Mate, if you are too big
Okay,
to
Mr.
read the comments...
Analytics.
What thread?
You are too
On
small.
Facebook?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I wrote well, you're too small. I wrote this question down. I just mentioned about embodying a mission. What if we have a consumer-driven Christian culture because we've been selling a product, this is the question, instead of embodying a mission?
Yeah.
Do you think, it's a genuine question, I wrote it down because I thought, man, is that true, is it not true? Do you think we have a consumer-driven Christian culture because we've actually been selling a product instead of embodying a mission?
Yeah.
Or those two, have we blended them maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's safe. I think it's easy for people not to be offended. We could just say they've been blended. But I think the obvious answer that people are seeing around the world right now is we've sold a product rather than embodying a mission.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm happy to take that to the bank, send me your hate mail. That's kind of what I see.
Yep.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But it's shifting. But I see it shifting heaps.
Yeah, especially with COVID.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
A lot of things have fallen away and it's,
Yeah.
the emperor's got no clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an answer to the question or are you just trying to get me in trouble?
No, I wrote it down because I like to think about these things, boys. And how, I do a bit of prep.
Good. Yeah, we talked about prep.
Capital P for prep. No,
prep all
I was, I was thinking about it.
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
It's a healthy question. Yeah.
Is it, maybe we have done that, so.
Because what at the end of the day, what is the product? How are we measuring success? Because I think coming back to your question, where and Dan, you speak to a lot of guys that are starting out in ministry, and I would agree with your statement. I guarantee no one goes in there saying they would be saying, I'm going to do it different this time. I'm not going to get caught up in this. I'm not going to get caught up in that. But once you're in it,
we all say that.
100%.
I say that now.
Yeah, exactly.
But you never know.
Yeah. You're the most humble guy, like
in the room.
In the room right now?
In the room right now.
Any room.
Yeah, and it's as you get a bit of success.
I think you get pulled in it again. It pulls you.
You get pulled in, and then
and
then people start patting you on the back, and you get a bit of recognition. And before you know it, you're measuring what you're doing with Babylon's metrics rather than what Christ is, because, like you say, you can't outside of a relationship. I mean, it's very hard to know motive, but outside of it, and this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, where religious affiliation is a marker of spiritual maturity. So we've got people in here, we're serving their needs. They're here Sunday, they're here Wednesday night, Thursday night. Doesn't mean anything. It's not until I'm walking in a relationship with someone that I know their heart and I actually get to see the fruit of their life. So rather than pushing a product, which the world can very easily see, if it's about the fruit that we're displaying, that I feel like that's more, that speaks more than, hey, I'm looking good on a particular social media channel, or I've got this number behind me, or I've got this big ministry, etc. Not saying all those things are bad.
Yeah. A good example of that question, Dan, is like most, I'll speak for men only because I don't know what goes through, say. I know that most men are sort of driven by what they see because they want to achieve what they see in someone else. It's the brilliant guys talking in the secular space that normally don't look at people who have done things as their benchmark. They have this vision to go, I'm going to, like someone like Elon Musk, right? He doesn't look at what else someone's done. He is like, he's got the ability to look way beyond it.
Yep.
With guys, simple guys coming through a church, if you feel called to ministry, that whole, what was the question about embodying a
mission
instead of
selling a product.
Okay, so the product we sometimes look at is a person, like a.
Yep.
Just, I want to use someone's name. I won't say his name, but we look at a who's a prolific. We look at TD Jakes as an aspiration, as a product. He becomes a product now.
Yeah.
If I'm a up and coming
That's
preacher,
how I'm measuring. That's
yeah,
how I'm
if
measuring
I'm an
what
up
I'm
and coming
doing.
preacher, I look at TD Jakes or someone else, and rather than, I know it sounds cliche, but the measure should always be like, how close am I coming to Jesus? But we don't do that. And we know we should do that, but we keep not doing that all the time. It's like you have to remind yourself daily, no, I don't just want to be like TD Jakes, or I don't just want to be like Stephen Furtick or Carl Lentz or anyone else is around here. I actually want to be closer to Jesus. But we don't do it. We have to always fight that. But the consumer Christianity church that we're in props those people up more than Jesus in the actions.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just a thought I had around that.
It's pretty true. I think it's pretty accurate. I know for sure when I was younger, because I'm not that old.
When you were 20.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's about right.
Yeah.
When I was about 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, I was in ministry at 22 full time. 25, 26. Man, it was definitely me all about, that exactly what you said. Here's so-and-so, and mate, that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to get to some level and status.
And not bad role models to look up to.
No, but it's not.
That little 1%, hey.
But it's not biblical.
Yeah, that's right.
So, now I'm 45 in July. It's, man, I was talking with a pastor friend of mine in Sydney yesterday, and he's saying he's 46. He's been in ministry around the same time, and I just said to him yesterday, we're just talking about things, like in his church and our church, and then around the world and what have you. We change the world in that conversation.
Absolutely.
It's kind of how we roll. But
Similar to this one. Similar to this convo.
Similar to this. But I just said to him near the end of that call, I said, man, I just got to be honest. I just don't care. And I really mean that. I do not care about trying to build something massive. I don't care about whether people know me or not. Because I just realised, man, I'm just simply here to love my wife, love my children, love the people in front of me, our church and what we do, our ministry, and be faithful to that, and just keep my head down and, serve the Lord, walk humbly, honour people. And I think, man, that's really, but younger guys, I think, see that, what you just said, and man, they're going for it, man, they're hammer and tong, and it's very consumeristic. And so, if I want to build that, then often I've got to jump into this world here that we're talking about now, where I'm going to feed into the generation what they want to hear, tickle their ears, give them what they need, feed them the nice things, because I want to build my ministry and my world. And so that's pretty raw, but I think there's an undercurrent there in our generation. Western world, consumer Christianity is a culture that is an undercurrent, and it goes across, and you can feel it and see it, and it's pretty ugly. And I just think I've got to be careful. I don't want to, I just want to honour God, So it's a...
I don't know who we were talking about this the other day with, but we talk about, obviously, Ravi, all the stuff that's come out about Ravi, and we don't know the full extent of it. I've read the report, but people can go and do their own research on it. Either way, it's sad because his family's here. It's like just hectic. But somewhere along the line, people always say God still uses these people, and I obviously agree. Like that, we can see that. But if I'm that person, I'm like, I don't just want all those people who I'm speaking life into and speaking to, and God uses me. I want to go to heaven too. Do you know what I mean? It's like this weird concept that like, oh, God will still use broken people. Like, yeah, but you don't want to stay broken. Like, you don't want to stay in deliberate sin, or you want to. I just find it such a weird concept that some of these people who live these like double lives, or not just talking about someone who's fallen, like just it's such a weird idea that God still uses you. Yeah, but cool, but don't get caught up in grace.
Yeah,
like that's I was going to ask you a question, Scott, but I think you'll do really well at answering. It's because you won't.
Bang. You said you'll do well in answering. I'll ask Dan because he's hopeless.
No, because based on what Dan just said, so he said as a young man, so picture this environment. He said as a young man, he was always aspiring, like we are. I think you're up against it as men, because when you're young, man, you really don't mature till 29, 30 at the earliest, to be honest, like to a certain degree. So if you're a young guy, isn't it now Dan's responsibility to come in? I mean, I'm still young enough, but isn't it his responsibility to come in and lead me to say, hey, don't chase TD Jakes? But obviously there's not enough people who have learnt it and they're coming in, they're still saying, hey, you could be like TD Jakes. There's still too much of that.
Yeah, I agree. And often when you take the narrow path, you're a bit more hidden. You're not visible.
Yeah.
So I think we've spoken about this before. Like, it's hard to come up with any sort of 5-step process because you really do need a revelation as a believer true. Hey, there's so much more to this thing of following Christ than what I get out of it. But it is a big part. We're all to blame because we've all fed into it. We've bought the books and we've done it ourselves at times.
Yeah.
I think the culture is a big part of it. Just being so individualistic. I cannot pronounce his name. He's a German social scientist. You can go onto his website. Maybe we should chuck it in the links. And he has this index of countries who are the most individualistic. So who's number one, do you think?
I love this stuff he brings.
Gold.
You bring the words.
I bring one.
I'm still working that one. I bring coffee. I bring coffee.
One word I bring every
one
time.
word a podcast. I normally bring the intro.
And Scott, you got everything else.
Go, Scott.
Wow, the burden.
No wonder your shoulders are tired.
Yeah, who do you reckon number one is?
US.
Yeah. Who do you reckon number two is?
Australia.
Melbourne.
Australia.
Wow.
Mexicans.
Sorry about Mexican friends down in Melbourne.
So true.
Is it Mexico?
No, it's Australia.
Australia, yeah.
And he goes through a whole heap of other things about how
and then probably New Zealand, yeah.
How masculine a society is, blah, blah, blah. Patriarchal, matriarchal. But I think as believers, we've got to understand the culture that we're operating in. And as leaders, we have to understand the culture that we're operating in and how we bring those cultural glasses, so to speak, to everything we do.
Yep.
It's hard to step outside that.
And I would say, in relation to your question, I don't think it's just my age. I think you guys fit in that same category because the fact we're talking about it means there's awareness. So, yeah, I think it is our responsibility to tell the generations behind us.
I wonder after COVID if people are sort of like, there's something more. I feel like there's a lot of people that are in church who have a consumer Christianity mindset. What can I get out of this? Because you get sick of it after a while.
Yeah.
So are they like, there's got to be something more to this? So then are they looking around? Is there nothing that they can see that maybe a community that they could get involved in and they could contribute as well as receive?
I think it comes down to what you said before, like it's almost too simplistic, but you've got to have a revelation. Hey, like firstly of like, what is this thing we call faith? Like what, so many people that probably go to church really don't even think about Jesus during the week at all.
I would agree.
And so kind of on Sunday, they're just like, and it's not even ticking the boxes. They just go and they see friends and they actually do community on a Sunday and that's great for them. But yeah, when something happens, there's no revelation really of who Jesus is. And that's a dangerous, I reckon a consumer environment will breed that.
Yep.
Where a discipleship and, I'm not talking like a discipleship environment will bring you closer. Absolutely. Yeah.
I was with a guy today, a young guy today. He's I think 27, and he had a question. Just a little bit of a story here, but
story time with Uncle Dan.
Story time. He had a question about giving, And so he asked me today. He said he told me a story. He said 2 weeks ago he gave to something, missions, whatever it was. I didn't ask him how much. He said he gave, but for them it was fairly significant. Gave that, and then the last couple of weeks he's had so much work, it's insane. He's just tapped out, and it's been really dry and arid and a real lack of work for him. So his question was, is that because of what I gave? And so we just talked about that whole, that whole topic about giving and sowing and reaping and look, it was an interesting conversation. But I think what I basically said to him is, this has to be a revelation, and because he was saying, I said, what are you worried about? He said, well, I don't want God to become a genie in a bottle, but I also don't want to live in that mentality of, if I don't give, am I cursed? And I said, yeah, both of those mentalities are wrong. I think they're wrong. It's not the gospel. And so I talked about that revelation, understanding, man, you have to have a revelation, because it's got to come from the inside of you and not someone telling you what you should and shouldn't do. But it was a great convo, and just, we unpacked it, and he said to me, look, I haven't been giving, and obviously I kicked him off the table and said, I've got no more time for you.
Dan said, I know, I checked the accounts.
That's why I needed to meet with you today.
We know.
That's a joke.
We're watching.
That's a joke.
We're 100% joking there. So, yeah, I think I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but I just...
But that is religion. That is the
Yes.
economy of exchanges. I give something, you give something back to me.
What you don't want to get caught up in is going, I gave $5,000 and got
nothing.
work. And then and then all of a sudden it's like, I only give $5,000.
So I said this to him. I said, giving is about faith. It's about trust. It's about love, and it's about value. I said it because money is a big indicator, of what you trust and what you have faith in, and but I was talking about the whole value thing. I said, if you value something, you will give to it, both energy, time, gifting, money, talent, whatever. It's a value. It's a value. Do I value this? Do I trust? Do I trust Jesus? Do I have faith? And I basically said to him, look, don't ever give with that mentality that if I give this, then in a certain time frame, I get X, Y, Z, because you will be disappointed. You're going to get disjointed. But I think consumeristic mentality there is a lack of maybe revelation of the gospel.
In that situation there too, God probably just wants you to, receive the blessing, acknowledge the blessing, and move on. There's no replicating that.
No.
Next time will look different.
I was going to say, I guarantee you there's down the track, there's going to be a little teaching moment from God that,
absolutely,
hey, nothing's coming after you gave a big amount of money as well.
Yeah, 100%. I've had those. Man, plenty of them. I'm like, oh man, where are you, G-O-D?
My business partner, we always talk about, saving up and buying a house or whatever. And he goes, it's one thing to save up and buy a house. He goes, what are you going to do when God says to give it away?
Oh,
I'm just like, just put the headphones on.
Yeah. No, I wasn't doing that. Was something else.
Yeah. Anything to add, Scotty?
Look, I just think, as I think two sides, we've got to do all we can if we're in leadership and we're leading someone to point people away from the consumerist mentality. You've got to understand the culture we live in, the presuppositions and the different things we bring to a faith. We just can't bring that to following Christ. Following Christ is going to cost you something, but the beauty of being part of a community, a church expression, is that we all get you give something, but you will return. And those times, and recognizing there's times where you got nothing to give, and all you do is receive because you're walking through a hard season. When you find those communities, you just cherish them. Yeah.
Boom.
Dan?
Man, I can't say it as beautifully as that without reading what I wrote.
Go ahead.
Geez, Scott, you're a machine, man. I wrote this. I'm increasingly convinced that church shopping kills disciples.
Yeah, true.
Pick a church, join that mission, stick with it. Forget what it can do for your family. Give yourself away. In that, you will find life. Stop asking what your church can do for you and start asking what you can do for your neighbours and friends and people far from Christ. That'll take you keep you away from the consumeristic mentality. Now, obviously, in that, there's churches that have spiritual abuse. Man, get out.
Yep.
If you've been spiritual, I get it. But that's not, I don't think what's happening. I think people, I don't like it.
Talking about the surface level stuff.
Yeah. So, man, find somewhere, stick at it, and you'll find life in that. I have no doubt. And so, yeah, I don't want to be a consumer Christian. I want to be a sold out, going to give my blood, sweat, and tears for others to see them, fulfill their purpose that God has for them.
Yeah, you want to be where you're called to be because there will be life in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, guys. I enjoyed the discussion. I'll close by saying thank you for those who are commenting and talking to us. But I'd also like to add, if you haven't got an environment or a community around you and you need prayer or you need someone to talk to, man, shoot us a text. We would love to pray over whatever's going on in your life in any way. Shoot a text or shoot an email. And if you want to ask questions, we're happy to do our best in our own little small worlds to research and answer them. But we appreciate you spending this time with us. We know it's valuable. And thank you. And we'll see you on the next one.